just looked at saw that it was already a few minutes past 7, so welcome to the Public Art Commission meeting on April 17th, 2014. We'll start with our roll call. So let's see, Commissioner Ross. Present. Commissioner Richter. Here. Vice Chair Miyagi. Here. Commissioner Usich. Present. Commissioner Collins. Present. And then, of course, our wonderful staff, Nadia Chuprina and Elise DeMarzo, are both here with us. Oh, and myself, Chair Kavanaugh. I'm present. Forgot about myself. I think that's obvious. Okay, so we've got a pretty full meeting. So we'll just jump right in. The first thing would be the agenda changes, requests, or deletions. And there is one, which action item number 3, which is the City Hall new media artwork, is going to a non-action. They had a meeting today and they'll update us, but there won't be any action taken, so you can kind of arrow that down. And there were no other changes, requests, or deletions that I'm aware of. Anybody know of any? Okay. So then did we have any oral communications other than Peter in the audience waiting for his time to be part of our meeting? No oral communications from no one in the audience. To anyone out there in the viewing audience, they can come to our meetings and join, participate. Okay, so we're going to move to approval of the minutes. So we've got 3 sets of meeting minutes to approve. So let's start just in chronological order and do the March 20th, so our last meeting that we held here. And did anyone have any changes, additions, or deletions?
I just had one comment on the financial report. I was thinking back about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my remembering is that we had asked that not so much in an additional budget report for non-CIP projects, but I believe this was the meeting where we were thinking about wanting to see kind of an overall cost on all public art projects, regardless of where the funds come from. I guess would mostly apply to the ones that are non-CIP. But even the CIP ones, because sometimes we don't see them over long spans of time, which I think has already been switched in the reports. And Pally under staff comments is PALY for those Pally alums around. Important.
Okay, so on that point about the budget, that was item number 3 from March 20th. Is there something that you wanted to actually change? Sorry. Is that what you were referring to, Alyssa?
Wait, say that again.
Your first comment, was that a change that you were requesting? You said it was item under
it was actually just under the financial report as far as what we were proposing. It's on the first part.
First page.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking under budget.
Yeah.
Would it make more sense to strike that final sentence?
I would say commissioners asked that that alongside public art projects comes information on how much the project costs. Or
And
how
so,
would you? I don't know.
well, I was going to say, so we ended up getting the staff report from Elise that actually does list each project and its total amount. Did you see that one?
Yeah,
and so so I think rather than having it as a budget per se, it's more of like a tracking device to be able to say, oh, that was a $250,000 or a $25,000 one. So that felt like that satisfied that discussion. But if there were other things that people had wanted to see or do.
No, I agree it did. I think that this was just the record of what it was that we were asking for, and it has been met, indeed. It has been met.
But so us proposing that an additional budget report, you just wanted to change the wording of that?
What she's doing is just she's not trying to do anything, but she's trying to amend the minutes.
To clarify
to reflect
the minute.
what she said at the time.
Asking for what are we changing it to? That's all. I think that's what I'm asking.
The commissioners, asked for reporting on for a project basis cost of public art or tracking, whatever it ended up being called.
for total project budget tracking, is that?
It
Well,
was
there's
more
some things
about
in the
knowledge.
budget that
I
you don't
think.
have to track.
Big
I think
picture.
that she's
It was
just
more
talking
about knowledge,
projects.
less about tracking, but more kind of knowledge of what the cost of is, regardless
Commissioners
of.
propose that additional budget information be made available to them.
I
On
think
all
that does,
projects,
but
all
it's
projects,
a knowledge of cost of each public art project is really
Yeah.
what it is.
Keyword projects.
Yeah, to have a big
the
picture
micro
on what-
context.
But would you want, I guess, so maybe we're not supposed to be discussing this, but I mean, I guess, so is that a field in our database currently, the amount of the project?
It is, but like, for example, when you.
It's not
came in-
visible to
yeah,
the-
When you came in, we have projects that have not happened yet, but there's a budget and is reflecting maybe the last payment not being paid at this point or something. For example, the fountain.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't go back to the beginning, if you see the last entry on
Yeah,
our
yeah,
budget, then
right.
you don't know how much that started off as the total
Correct.
cost. So that's all she's asking for, is a clarification, so that it's there for any new commissioner coming in. Those of us,
$300,000 fountain or not a.
So it's reflecting the total where you're seeing a part of it.
right.
Got it.
Just, yeah, what the
Okay,
big picture of
I
what it
understand.
costs, and also regardless of what budget it comes out of, that way, if we're seeing something here on our budget,
yeah,
and
I'm
it's
following
talking
you.
about money that we're allocating for something, that we have a big picture of, if money's also coming from somewhere else, that you're seeing the total cost of it. And
So
what our
current
pieces of-
history, keeping the history
But you're not
current.
asking for, like, Peter Jensen, out of your budget, you must have paid stuff to get Aurora prepared. You're not saying from other areas too.
No.
Well, not necessarily for something like, say, work is done in the planting container around Aurora, but I do think that we as a commission need to know,
What was
what is
spent.
the total cost of Aurora? I mean, we
To
need
us.
to know that, even if it's not coming
So you
from
do
our
want it from all
budget.
the different departments then? Like police department, electrical?
Well, no, I think that that's different because also that was a project that was, funded from non-city funding.
Yeah.
Right, so I think, I'm thinking more of like, say on 1% projects where we know it's 1%, and it's not in our budget, it's coming from the percentage of the library project. It's always helpful for us to know as we're assessing pieces of a project, know what the total cost that is of that work of art. Okay.
So how about commissioners propose that additional information is available to see the total cost of projects?
Perfect.
Right.
And then that implicit in that tells the timeline of the project, like, where we kind of are. If half the money has been spent and if 25,000 is left, then you kind of have an idea that it's due to go in without, it's on one page.
To refresh each time, yeah. Good.
Okay, any other changes to those March 20th minutes?
I have a change, but unfortunately I can't put it concisely into words. So the subcommittee reports line at 6, and fortunately we have minutes because my memory is just pretty short term. I feel like some of the information is getting mixed. So I don't recall updating the commission on the development status of the draft of subcommittee structure documents. I feel like I've done that, and then I don't know why Chair Kavanaugh would present updates on outreach subcommittee when you're not on the outreach subcommittee.
I think that was me who did.
Right, and so perhaps it's easier when we're documenting the subcommittee reports to just, bullet it as the subcommittee report, only because I feel like then it's also clear who's on those subcommittees to provide the report. Anyway, I guess my antenna went up with the first line. I don't know that I.
Commissioner Tabak wasn't here, so
Right.
Chair Kavanaugh presented the presentation
On-
to the commission.
That
On
was for
innovation.
innovation.
Yes.
That was for
And
innovation.
she's on innovation also. But so to your point, I think, Amanda, it's not a bad idea, just under subcommittee reports, maybe it could just be a bullet of the 4 subcommittees, and for each one could be an update on what happened for that one. Because I was also confused when I read it and trying to recollect that what was happening where.
And also, I think it's important to note if a subcommittee doesn't come with a report. You know, I think that the intention is that the subcommittees are meeting and updating the commission generally on what they're doing. So, you know, next to the subcommittee, no report is important.
Yeah, it is.
So would you prefer that we strike the first line of
I
the
think so, Elise.
subcommittee? Okay.
Unless you want to check the tape, and I
And
did
then-
say what I don't recall.
Let's just keep it simple.
Okay.
And then there is the line at the end that the ad hoc subcommittee had no monthly report. So we will take note of that and do it more as a bullet rather than a person by person.
Okay, okay. And then I guess Chair Kavanaugh, though, on the update of the outreach subcommittee, I think was probably Larissa.
And it's possible that I just simply introduced it because I used to be on the outreach subcommittee,
Okay.
and then I did, well.
No, but we didn't have a
There wasn't a
It
presentation.
was for innovation.
Yeah, that was me, just change it.
Yeah, probably best, yeah, just change.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I guess with those couple of changes, then do we have a motion to approve the March 20th minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so the April 7th joint meeting minutes. Let's do those. That's the joint meeting with the city council from 6 to 7 p.m. So it was just a kind of a quick summary of what we discussed with the city council. Was there any changes anybody had there? I think probably it's pretty straightforward, so I'm going to ask for a motion.
I move to approve the minutes of Monday, April 7th.
Second.
Very good. And all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then the last, which was our super fast meeting of a special meeting from 7 to 7:15 on Monday, April 7th. Were there any changes to that set of meeting minutes? I didn't have any. I'll make a motion to approve those. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ben. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. We are done with the approval of our minutes. Great. Thank you, everybody. So Elise, financial report and budget updates?
I know I set them aside someplace handy. So the maintenance, there is no update this month. We are still gathering some proposals for the new foundation and the new placement for Universal Woman at the Art Center. So it's expected we'll have that next month. The changes on the CIP, as you look in that bottom section of PAC approved future budgets, you'll see the $25,000 earmarked for the public art master plan and the $2,100 that were earmarked for the stipends for the golf course project. And those are the only two changes.
And that should be golf, GOLF.
And do you want to add the dates going forward? In which case you could add that, since we know that one happens to be April 7th of 2014. I mean, it's kind of useful, I guess, because that would give us a framework for when it was.
Oh, because you're saying some of the ones above have,
Well, just that one
Dates
public arts,
on-
yeah, the master plan was March 20th, and then that was, the other one, all the ones before
Right.
that were kind of prior to that, so.
yeah, that's helpful.
The dates up above are actual payment dates and that first actual cost, so that's why those dates are there. But we can certainly, note the dates that the commission approved.
Is there what's the date next to public art master plan? Was that the date of approval then?
320?
Yes.
Yeah.
I could see how that would be helpful to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because how long has it been for
Right.
artists reaching communities?
Right.
Right, it'd be interesting. All right. Anybody have any questions on the budget for Elise? The CIP budget, that
And
is? I
City
mean,
Hall
or
at
if
the
there was
bottom.
anything on maintenance.
My eyes just jump right to it. You go in and look at it. So
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't.
just computer error or spelling. Sorry.
Okay, so it looks like our available budget then for this fiscal year is $2,653.24, correct?
Correct.
And that's a kind of use it or lose it, is that correct? It doesn't roll over, or it does roll over?
CIP funds do roll
They
over.
do
The
roll.
maintenance funds do not.
Do not. Thank you for clarifying. Okay.
So may I ask a question?
Sure.
So will you get a budget next year allocation different from what we've gotten in the past because of the Public Art Trust? I'm just curious how you.
It's still scheduled to be the same as of now. It hasn't been adjusted either way.
All right. Shall we move to staff comments?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thursday, May 29th, please join us for another free technical assistance program brought to you by the Community Services Department. We'll debrief you on the experiences from the May 6th Day of Giving, as well as hear from fundraising guru Margot H. Knight. This will take place Thursday, May 29th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Lucy Stern Community Center Fireside Room. About Margot Knight, many of you may know who she is, but for those who may not, in November of 2011, Knight became the executive director of Jurassic Artist Residency Program in Woodside, California. This is her 7th position in the arts and humanities in 35 years. Each position she has held has incorporated the things she loves: history, challenges, artists, scholars, education, and access. And she's been tremendously successful in her fundraising efforts. The next item is the new commissioner recruitment. So last night, interviews took place. Council was here to interview the candidates for the Public Art Commission. There are 6 candidates. 2 of them were unfortunately not available to come interview. They are still up for the running and can certainly be chosen. And so 4 of them did interview last night, so that was interesting to watch. Amanda Ross was here as well because she was re-interviewing. So she stayed to listen to the other candidates as well. And the last item I have is an update on the pre-qualified pool. So the call is scheduled to close on Monday. So any way you can get the word out to more artists, that would be great. We want to have a really large, robust pool of diverse artists. As of today, we have 219, we checked about half an hour ago, artists who have applied, and we would like the number to get even bigger so that we really have a good pool of artists to choose from for both municipal projects and for private development projects. And that's it for the announcements.
I had a question on that, which is, so will this preclude us then doing individual calls for projects?
No, we may still do individual calls for projects.
Yeah.
If you'll recall, especially with the Magical Bridge Playground, because that's a very specific and unique audience, and we want the artists to have sensitivities to that audience and that specific call. We can still do individual calls.
Yeah.
So it doesn't prevent us from doing that, but it helps us move much faster rather than having to do a 2-step RFQ, RFP for some of the smaller projects. So it'll just allow us to be much more nimble.
And even though the date will close as of the 21st, there are still opportunities for artists in the future to put forward themselves, right? I mean, I feel like there's not an open call. Yeah.
It's not a rolling call. It is a pool of artists that will be used over the period of the next 2 years, and then we'll open for a new call.
Okay.
And where so far has it been posted?
I'm hearing a lot of feedback that it's been posted and reposted throughout. So we did put it out on Americans Through the Arts. Of course, listing it on Cafe, it goes out to thousands of artists. And a lot of the people who do pick it up on the Public Art listserv do repost it. So for instance, Las Vegas reposts it. There are a number of big cities that repost all of those calls. Yeah, so we've been really good about making sure it's getting out there. And I actually recently sent a communication to all the Coverly artists to encourage them to apply and to get the word out. And a number of them got back to me and said, I've seen it 4 places. It's definitely out there. So I'm really encouraged to hear that.
What was the date again?
Monday, the
April
21st is the
21st.
deadline.
Yeah.
I'll come off.
And do you have a quick idea of the breakdown of the types of artists of the 219? I mean,
No, I can't say. I haven't spent that much time looking through it, but it seems like a good variety.
right. Okay.
Oh, and I had a quick question regarding, the positions open on the commission. Is the council able, if they wanted to, are they required to fill all of them, or could they select 3 or 2, or do you know how that?
I've never seen them choose to not fully fill the seats, especially since they've tried to consolidate the interview process and the calls to a couple of times a year. So if they chose not to fill the seats, they may not do another call for applicants for another year, which would be very difficult if then 1 or 2 commissioners moved away or stepped down for whatever reason.
As of now, there were 4 positions and 4 interviewed, correct?
That's correct, and 2 other candidates.
And we're not- there's- oh. Yeah, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So, and during discussion, we can talk about the sad moment that we'll all have at the end of the meeting when we see 4 of you depart, perhaps 1 to return. Okay, so shall we move on to our special presentation? We have Peter Jensen rejoining us. He was here 2 months ago and talked about Magical Bridge, and we started talking a little bit about master planning. And so we invited Peter back to join us and talk with him about their process on master planning for parks and recreation. So thank you for joining, and we just love to hear kind of the scope of what you've got and your timeline. And okay.
Hey, Commissioners, thanks for having me this evening. Going to go through just a quick presentation. As you can see up there, the very long title, Parks, Trails, Open Space, and Recreational Master Plan. It is key to note that it did start off just to be a Parks Master Plan. And then in the process of it, there are other though facilities that are very important to our kind of recreation that we have in the city, including open spaces, trails, and as well as the programming that is put on by the city. So those are all kind of facets in the Parks Master Plan that we first will look at and study. So the project goals and objectives. Well, really the objective of the project is to provide the kind of necessary analysis to review the on. Oh, am I on now? Sorry.
I know, I saw like a red button.
Oh, it looked like
Do
it
you
was
want to
on.
restate anything that he has stated?
I could hear him just very faintly.
So the goal
Okay.
is, thank you, sorry about that,
Yes.
was a 25-year plan.
Yeah, so let's say the goal is to create a master plan that covers the next 25 years and basically is providing guidance to not just the Community Services Department, which oversees the parks, but also Park and Recreation Commission, City Council, city staff, as well as other boards and commissions that evolve around the city. So, and what that helps us do that we don't have now, because we do not actually have a Parks Master Plan now. We're one of the only cities around that in this area that does not have its a current robust master plan for its parks. It allows us to project basically what renovations, what enhancements that we really need in the city, where those things are going to be, and how much they're going to cost, so we can go basically get the funding for those things and have a clear understanding of what the budget will be to keep the park system as it is and to enhance it. So those are kind of the key objections and goals for the project itself. So, like I said earlier, the plan will address parks. It will address the open preserves, but it just looks at the developed areas of those preserves. So, in Foothill Park, that would be the picnic areas, the campgrounds, areas around the built structures that are there. It doesn't actually look at the open areas, like a Rasmussen Preserve is mostly an open area. It will look at the Rasmussen Preserve parking lot. There have been some concerns that maybe the parking lot is too small there, even though it's a preserve. So that we'll study kind of those developed areas. There are a lot of acreage out there that is open space, so the scope of that work falls outside, and there are actually future plans to do open space study work for Foothills Park and the Arrestero Preserve. So those will be future kind of add-ons to this long-range plan. Of course, it'll look at recreational programs and services, what we have now, what we offer. We'll also look at future demographics and project how the city will be composed, the community, in the next 25 years, and where we're falling short on providing services for the groups that are growing in our community. It also will look at just areas that we don't provide services for and recommend how we can provide those services now. It also looks at, though, if those services are offered by surrounding communities as well, or if it's provided by the school district. So there's groups going on that may provide services that we don't, but if those are holes that no one else is providing, then we need to focus on those things. Park maintenance, of course, maintaining the parks is a large capital cost. So, we want to figure out what that projection is going to be down the line, so we have the budget to cover those costs, and where we can be more sustainable in that cost. So how can we cut down on water use? Water is a big proponent of the cost that's kept our parks. So how can we reduce water? How can we reduce just maintenance in general, and the disturbance that goes along with basically maintaining the parks? And then, of course, like I said, capital improvements, and that's just basically understanding what we're going to need, how we need to renovate and enhance the parks, and what those capital needs will be to make that happen. So those are the areas that the plan overall addresses. The master plan now, as it's being put together, it falls in different stages. Right now, we're just in the early stage of basically analysis and gathering information. So what we've done already is with the consultant, which is MIG is the firm that's taking this on. They have basically toured. We've gone on a tour through the parks, met with maintenance staff, met with a contingent of staff just in general from all the departments of the city, and have started gathering information. They've also started to look at the comprehensive plan, the urban forest master plan, and all these other pieces of material that the city has put together, so it all blends in and make sure that it's supporting those and is in an agreement with those. So that process is going on right now. Pretty soon we're going to move into the next process, which is more of a community outreach process, and that's where we basically go out into the community, have community meetings. We also are going to have some intercept groups, and that's when a small group of either consultants or city staff go to farmers markets or things of that nature and basically do face-to-face short surveys basically with people. So we plan on doing a few of those. And then, of course, we have a web page developed that'll allow you to interact with it, not only getting all the presentation materials as we kind of go through this, but it has a very unique feature called Mapita, which allows you to actually look at a map of the city and then click on a park, and then allows you to make comment about that park. So it prompts you as it goes through it, if you have a favorite park, if you have which park is closest to you, which park do you go to recreate the most in, and then it asks you a series of questions. It's like a survey, but it uses a map to help you kind of guide around and then figure those things out. So that will be kind of an integral part in gathering community information. We also have then a gathering information from the bodies of the city itself. So the Public Arts Commission, the Park and Recs Commission, Planning Commission, as well as city council, is involved in this process. And basically, we'll have meetings along the way as this process goes, where we'll come back and give you information or ask for information. So that is kind of all built into the process as well. So we work basically all those things in and gather that information from all the groups, and then the consultant is responsible for basically putting it all together. And one of those key things as they put it all together, we will come back and discuss is prioritization. Once we have a list of things that we know that people want or things that we know that we're lacking, how do then we prioritize that list so we know which things to tackle first? Because the list could be very large. We don't know yet. We have to be realistic in what we can actually afford to do over time. Of course, we'd like to do everything, but we definitely want to do the things that have the most impact to the community around us. So that will be an important step of this. We talked a little bit about community engagement. These are community meetings set up by the consultant. They have many different kind of techniques to use during these meetings. The first ones definitely are more interactive, where they allow participants to really give feedback on different things they like or dislike about the park. And then, you know, as it goes down the line, it just starts to get feedback of the kind of product that's being produced. So the first meetings for the community and for the city boards and commissions is more taking away or analyzing and getting your feedback from it. The next part is this is what we heard and how we're analyzing basically that. And the last one is really looking at the kind of the report. So those are the things as it goes along that we'll be talking about in this process.
Now, we were involved with one at the Ring Comic Park. It was a great meeting. It was super fun. We all just basically brainstormed about what needed to be done at Rinconada, what the issues were, and a lot of them have been changed since that meeting. The signage, it's like the grass area is like marshland. For some reason, they can't seem to figure out how to get the sprinkler system to work. So the kids are always walking to school with wet feet, and they're working on the sprinkler. I mean, so they're already starting to. I mean, exactly. That was pretty quick.
No, and those all those that's basic feedback is really kind of what the core of this comes down to. You know, it's of course there's going to be more grandeur dreams of building gymnasiums and pools and all those things, but really a lot of it is just about what we have now does really work. We have a great park system. We're not saying anything negative about it. We want to keep it as good as it is now. There may be things that are lacking or things that are just peeves for people, that the sprinkler never works, or you know, the playground is always broken. So those are the things that we want to know, so we can also be addressing in this, which goes around is important in the long range plan. So we do have a lot of audiences that we do want to target. Definitely the community, the surrounding communities definitely use the parks of Palo Alto. We'd like to definitely get involved elderly community, the youth, those communities as well that don't usually get a lot of say in things like this. So there's our specific things, especially along with the webpage, that are focused on that can definitely bring in. The MAPITA thing is a key thing, because you can use it on your phone in a park and really interact directly there while you're doing it. Along with that, so in the parks, as we get going with this and the MAPITA gets up and the webpage is operational, we'll basically be putting signs in the park that'll be directing people to do this as well. So hopefully we'll be capturing those that are out in the park using it. Again, another group that most of the time doesn't get involved with this. This talks a little bit about, again, the webpage and the MAPITA. We just basically want to engage different audiences. There is also another group that we are putting together, is a stakeholder group of community members that wear kind of multiple hats in the community that get together and again is another just form of a group to discuss prioritizations and things that should be happening. I would like to propose this, and we can do it now, is that I think a commissioner, if there is one that has the time, I would like them to be on the stakeholder advisory, and you guys can discuss this. It's going to start in a couple of months. It's basically 3 meetings is what you have to come to. That's the commitment, and it is over. The general plan for the master plan is it's 18 months. So we've started basically 2 months ago. So the actually master plan won't be completed until the end of sometime next year, basically. So over that time, there'll be 3 meetings, basically, of the stakeholders. I think that would be having someone from the Arts Commission would be good to have on that stakeholders group. So I started briefly touching then on the timeline. And I started kind of talking about those phases, the kind of analysis and the gathering of information, that analysis of that information, and then writing the report is this. So it's basically going to take that 18 months. The analysis and the community outreach part is happening up until the fall of this year, and then it'll go into the prioritization form, and then after that, basically the writing of the report. We can look at that right here. So. It definitely is a long-term and detailed project, taking a lot of information and condensing it down. So yeah, it has a good timeline there. That it's not something quickly produced, that's for sure. Yes. And like I said before, we have gotten started. So we did have a city shuttle bus shuttle around a consultant team and staff. We went to 18 different parks and looked at them. This is us actually stopping at the recreational facility out by the Baylands baseball field, because the master plan folks will also be talking about the development of the area of the golf course, the 10 acres, and prioritizing what should be out there. Right now it's set aside for playing fields, but let's figure out exactly if we do need playing fields. Do we need 3 playing fields? Do we need 2 playing fields and a skate park? I don't know what is supposed to be out there. But this process will help us kind of distill all those things down to really what is needed.
I know a hot issue in Palo Alto is the club sports versus an AYSO.
Right.
Who's competing
Right,
for that,
exactly.
for that space, and it's just becoming more and more
Right. Oh yes,
difficult to get field space.
Yes, the field space in Palo Alto is already extremely impacted. The more fields that we can get, definitely the better. They would like. So, yeah, that's something that we'll definitely be talking about. How many fields is that, though? That's really what we want to get down to. How many more fields do we need? Well, I think so. I mean, Palo Alto itself is it's locked into kind of its size, so you can predict its growth. So you can start to predict in the number of fields that you need. Right now it's fairly close, but definitely 3 or 4 more fields would probably help out a lot. I don't know if we need 6, 7, or 8 more fields, or where we would find the land to do that with, but this plan will help us kind of determine and decide what those things will be. How the plan is used, and that's really key. It's got to be very clean and clear and crisp and concise. So it's got to be all those things, because there's a lot of plans that you take off the shelf that get put on the shelf and then no one ever looks at them again. So the plan will be used then again by city commissions, the city council, definitely city staff, as they start to basically look through that and then projecting down the road what projects will need to take place. Like I said, its key function is really to figure out also the dollar and capital amount that will be needed to make these things happen. Currently, right now, we're basically just maintaining the parks that we have. We really don't do a lot of enhancements to them. Most of the budget is just all put in towards just keeping what we have right now, which is a fine way to do it. But if you ever did want to have something new, then you would have to project 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the line that you would need this amount of money so that you could request it in a time fashion. So that's basically the kind of gist of what we're doing. It's a long scale project. I just basically wanted to come here tonight to kind of introduce it to you because you will be seeing it a couple more times, and then also to request if the commission would like to have a member or two on there. Usually, most of the time, I request two. Just if someone can't make it, then you just have a backup. You probably, like I said, there's 3 meetings, so one person can probably make all 3 meetings, but it's always just safer to have someone else. So, we don't need to discuss that here. You can agendize that for the next meeting if you'd like. And you can let me know what that is. So, with that, I'll take questions that you may have.
Go ahead. So first, thanks for coming. Come anytime. So it's interesting both because I'm very interested in the outcome of all of this as a citizen of Palo Alto, but also because we're getting ready to undertake our own master planning process. So it's kind of like, 2 parts of the brain working there. I did want to know about your efforts at community outreach. So you're going to post you mentioned posting signs for people who go to parks. And then do you have will it go out to the city? Like, how will you actually reach people? Like, what's the plan there? I know that probably the consultants will do that, but like, do you hand over names? Like, does it go through the city? Like, is it all of those things? I'm just really curious about the mechanics of that.
Yes, I mean, it's basically a multi-pronged kind of a attack that happens there. So it uses the Palo Alto Neighborhood Association's email list, the Community Services email list. We will be sending out an informational flyer in your gas bill, so everyone in the city basically gets one of those. It's got a web presence. And then it's got presence in the parks themselves. So as well as all the other things that go along just with the city's webpage, its social media, all that stuff will come into play in broadcasting the information and getting people engaged to be a part of this. So yes, those are kind of, all the things that we're working on. Usually for smaller scale projects, I mail things as well to a vicinity around the project. This project, though, is a little bit larger scale, so it's not just economical to send that many flyers. We can do it through the gas mailer. It's much more condensed and just basically directing people to go to the web page or where they can go to actually take a survey as well. But so yes.
Well, I'm just thinking out loud. I remember a couple of years ago. This is great because I remember a couple of years ago, one of the committees that we had was called site committees, and we had people going all over the city, everywhere, different areas, landscapes and whatever, and it was very difficult to even think of new spaces and places that we could actually do art. So I just think this will work right into the kinds of things that we thought about and probably will need to think about in the future. So good work.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I'll dovetail on that thought because I too remember that part of the site's work was, I think it was somebody else who'd come from parks who I remember sitting up here in City Hall and looking at images of some of the different parks and where potential spaces for art were, because it was important to understand how the park was used and that it not be a space that is set up even as a mini field for playing on or things like that. And I distinctly remember that when I joined the commission, as a couple of us here did, now 6 years ago, that Linda Craighead, who was at the time the city liaison to the commission, one of her objectives was to have public art in every park. That was actually a major objective that was stated when I joined the commission. There was no master art plan at the time, right. So it's and I've thought since then. I don't know that it's tracked particularly, although we could all find out how many parks do have art in them. A lot of them do, not all of them, but it's neat that this is being undertaken as a plan, and it's great that a commissioner and then the commission in general will have dialogue about it with everybody who's doing this. I think it's really great.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank you as well and say that I've taken good notes, because as we're scoping our master plan, I think you opened my eyes to a couple of things I hadn't yet already noted, particularly the community outreach, starting with the tours. I think that's a great idea. The farmers market kind of direct interviews as an example, the website. These are great ones. And then, of course, the really important was the budget. I mean, I actually, you know, I had already sort of thought of prioritization, but then, of course, adding in a dollar amount that you would even envision, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I guess as the chair, I would say that absolutely we'd love to have some members from our commission join. So thanks for the invitation. We do have, as you've heard, a couple of people rolling off. So if it's okay, maybe that'd be a great opportunity to get some of our new commissioners engaged, and it would be a fun thing for them to jump into. So we'll kind of hold off doing that tonight, but it'll be exciting for sure. And yeah, so great. Thanks. And actually, I wondered, how long did it take you guys to get your scope together before you you sent out your RFQ, I guess, or RFP?
I wrote the scope.
You did? Okay.
It's here somewhere. Here, you can have that.
Excellent. Thank you.
It took probably like 2.5, 3 months to write it and then
Get
get it all input for it and put it together and then get it into what is the department that does that? I want to call it accounting.
Procurement.
Yes.
Yeah.
To get it then posted.
Yeah.
So yes, there is definitely a process. Besides
Yep.
just the writing of it, there's definitely a process of actually getting it then posted that you have to go through it as well.
Yeah.
We've heard.
And then the firm that you ended up selecting, I guess you mentioned them, they were MIG.
MIG,
Have they done a lot of master plans for?
they do, yeah, that's their landscape architectural firm, but they're basically a large scale planning firm, and they just do large scale master plans for
Great.
communities. So, and they work all over the United States. They were discussing one that they're working on in Pennsylvania right now. So this is just something that they do for cities. Ours is a more detailed in the fact that it looks at programming and things as well. So they do a wide range of master planning from just specific parks to whole city.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that even when I can send you her phone number, you might just want to talk to Lauren Schmidt from MIG. She may give some more feedback on the master planning for art. I've never just done a master plan for art, so I'm not quite sure what's entailed in it, but they may be doing those already. I don't know if that's their scope of their work, but I would imagine that it probably is.
Yeah, thanks. That's a helpful lead. All right, good. Well, are there any other
Can I ask
questions?
one?
Yeah.
It's not related to this. I was just wondering if, and I could probably look it up. Does the Parks group have a friends group? Like, do you ever have people that come and they want to fix things in their park and they're willing to pay for
the
it?
Friends of Palo Alto Parks. They are an organized group that meets once a month. They do projects in parks, shade structures, or doing planting maintenance, things of that nature. They are also the parent nonprofit group of the Friends of the Magical Bridge, is a spinoff of the Friends of the Parks. But yes, there is a community-based group.
Is it fun? Do they do fundraising as well?
They do fundraising. Like art, landscape is not the cheapest thing to do. So their fundraising is for that group, I think, is very, very good. The impact, though, that it have and the amount that they are fundraising is not to a level yet where it can, do really large scale projects, but they are definitely involved.
Bridge, right?
Except for Magical Bridge, right?
Very...
Exactly. So yeah.
Can you give us an idea of costs for the master plan?
How much?
How much is
we're paying the consultant?
Yeah.
We're paying the consultant about $300,000 for the plan. Yes, so that's the budget. It is definitely spaced out over an 18-month period. So from
a
most
lot of
planning
community
process,
meetings and all that.
Yes,
They're
a lot of
really
community
involved
meetings.
in it. So yeah, I can.
And we are there's also the program by planning, the Art Palo Alto, that we are coordinating with as well. So some survey questions may cross over, and involves some of the information that they're looking for. Some they may be involved with our community meetings because they also have it's kind of a master planning process as well. This our Palo Alto thing. So we want to make sure that we're not overloading the community with too many meetings and burning them out. So there's definitely cross information that we can work together on getting.
I like one thing you said about you need to have attainable goals in the master plan.
Yes.
Because too many times you get too many wild ideas
Right.
that are not, and then your master plan looks silly.
Right.
So you need things that are attainable and things that can be done. And
Right.
you're going to get some input that is just going to be so wild. But, you got to, and it's doable goals, and that's the main thing.
Right. Well, that's always the key, I think, in the master planning process. I mean, like I talked about the prioritization, the recommendations that come from that. But it is, though, not just having the community meetings, but it's the community meetings. It's meetings like this with the commission and the board. It's the meetings with staff. They're basically all kind of stakeholders
Right.
in this group, and they all provide their ideas and, their wants, their needs that they'd like met, and really then it's taking that list and then paring it down. That's the key thing for the master plan, is to get a list of projects and renovations that are realistic and attainable. Yes, it wouldn't behoove us to say that we wanted to have $1 billion worth of things built over the next 25 or 30 years. That would be ridiculous. We want to make sure that what we want to do is aligned with what we can do. Those things definitely need to be melded together in this report. So,
And then you get buy-in from those groups, too, and that you get the support for your master plan.
right.
I have a question.
Sure.
It has nothing to do with this. I'm sorry. Are you actually, because I want to track this process, and I just wanted to know, do you work for the city?
I am the landscape architect for the city.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
So-
So I'll know who to find. I just want to.
And we will. The web page will be probably the best place to get information. So things like this presentation will be posted on there. All the findings, basically the drafts of all the reports. So really, if you came in late and it was 6 months down the line from now and you wanted to know what had happened before, that should be fairly clearly laid out there. If you wanted to take the time to open every link and look at all the presentations, you'd have a good idea of basically what we've done. So yes.
Yeah. Peter Jensen is one of our best allies. He has, I think you should tell the story. He's been wanting art in the planter box for how many years? And in front of City Hall.
Oh,
He was thrilled to have Aurora there. He helped so much getting Aurora put in. We really appreciate it. And we, as commissioners, had no idea you wanted art in that planter box. So it would have been nice to have had a dialogue, because it took us, 6 or 7 years to get art in that planter box for you?
We had a number of installations there.
But not for the 6 years he was here in his job.
I've only been here 3 years.
3 years he wanted something. 3 years.
But and I would say to that too, I know Aurora is not meant to be there forever, so I would like to know what's going there next.
Right. And so he's the greatest ally for you.
yeah.
Well, and we've talked about that space for a long time being probably the most obvious space in our city to have as a rotating temporary art location.
Right. Well, yes. That you can't get much more visible than right in front of City Hall. So, I think it's always important to try to maintain the art there in that spot. So.
Good, well, appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so we get to move on to our action item. There's just one remaining, which is the Tony DiCenza content for his it's the final language for the temporary public art installation that he has been working on for downtown Palo Alto. So I think that everybody's probably had a chance to read through this. Once again, maybe for Ben's and my benefit, simply because we were the ones who weren't here when this all came about.
I have a report I was going to give
Oh, okay.
to sort of set it up and frame it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. Please,
No, it's
go ahead,
fine.
Elise.
So a couple of things. So I had prepared to give a little background on the project and the evolution of the project, because it has changed a little bit since the concept was approved by the commission. And Tony really wanted to be here this evening, but when he emailed me yesterday and let me know that he was terribly sick with the flu and had fever, but he would try and come down, I suggested that perhaps he stay home.
Good idea.
So I do have an email statement from him, which I will read to you after I do what I was going to do as my report anyway. So you'll hear the artist's voice, although he regrettably isn't here in person this evening. So, as you all may recall, Tony DeCenza's proposal for a temporary installation downtown was approved last spring. In subsequent meetings with staff, commissioners, and stakeholders, there's been a slight shift in the project. Originally intended to be mounted as vinyl signage on storefront windows of startups downtown, it quickly became apparent that the project might be lost or too subtle if presented that way. The artist and staff agree that it makes more sense to mount the text on existing poles downtown in a more traditional street signage format for maximum impact and consistent look and feel, similar to some of his previous projects, which are, you can see some of the examples there. The plan is to mount a series of 20 to 24 signs on a path that begins and ends at City Hall. A map would be available both at City Hall and on the Public Art website. Staff is working with the planning department to ensure that the signage will be of legible scale, any permits required are secured, and that the installation meets all safety regulations. Additionally, staff has been in contact with the city manager's office to explore the possibility of partnering with our Palo Alto to find a way to allow residents to respond to some of the prompts raised in the artwork. The artwork would likely be installed in late May or June for a period of approximately 6 months. At this time, staff would this evening, I would like to solicit any feedback the Commission may have on the final proposed text and recommend that the PAC approve the project for fabrication and installation. So,
Did you say 6 months is the proposed duration?
yeah, about 6 months. So it would be up for this summer and then come down sometime around the holidays when things get really busy again. So here are a couple of general notes, and just bear with me. He's very sorry he's not here. So he says, this current revised iteration of the project is felt to be a more direct and less complicated delivery of the sequence of text than the original storefront idea. As my work on the project progressed, I realized that using the storefronts created logistical and permission issues beyond the scope of the proposal, and more importantly, was not going to allow for a consistent and unified visual presentation of the texts. This latter issue I feel to be critical to a proper reading of the work, and so I decided that going with the signage-based approach was going to create more impact. This approach also ties the project in more directly with the work I had created for the Palo Alto Arts Center in the fall of 2012, which enjoyed a great deal of visibility. A note on the sequence of questions. Though the work is broken into approximately 24 individual signs, it is intended to be considered as a single work, even if any given viewer never sees all of the signs. The text itself is derived in both tone and content from a mixture of ESL conversation question and crisis counseling intake questions.
Wait, say that again?
The text itself is derived in both tone and content from a mixture of ESL conversation questions and crisis counseling intake questions. The tone is at once innocent and intrusive, and while the text is intended to have a humorous aspect, it is extremely deadpan. Much of my text-based work relies on a degree of ambiguity as to who or what is actually speaking, and this project follows that same logic. Presenting these odd and somewhat repetitive questions in the form of what appear to be official traffic signage is meant to destabilize viewers, creating uncertainty as a means of seizing passers-by's attention. The questions are somewhat broad and unspecific. While they touch on issues of acute relevance in the city of Palo Alto, the work is also meant to interrogate the many individuals who may be visiting Palo Alto from other cities, where they may face their own version of the issues raised by the text. Final determination as to the precise sightings of the signs is still underway, but the idea is that the work will extend out from City Hall in a rough loop of around 8 downtown blocks. Should viewers wish to follow the whole work, a map and a brief description of the project will be provided at City Hall. Additionally, while the front of the signs will provide no information about the project whatsoever to preserve the uncertainty discussed earlier, we're thinking of putting QR code sticker on the back of each sign so people can actually determine what they're looking at. My deepest thanks to for everyone's time and attention, and my sincere apologies I won't be able to be there tonight. Tony.
All right, thank you very much for that recap. So I guess I was,
We then looking at slides, or is this is what?
This is just a sample. This is just a sample of the signage, so you get a sense of what it would look like. Each of the signs would be approximately 18 inches square.
so that was one of my questions, which was just the size. Because I think, I mean, so that's at least twice 18 inches, I would think. Because if that's 12, 18 is about like that, so that would be about roughly, maybe double
So you'd read them and see them on foot, not
by car.
by car.
I think,
Not like the ones in Embarcadero, where the one sentence you could read by car. These would be intended to be
More pedestrian oriented. It would be too much text to take on in a car unless you're stuck in horrible traffic.
the street signs that are between the sidewalk and the street. I'm trying to picture like where.
there was one slide, can I back
Yeah,
up
with
one?
the other poles. So we would have to determine the exact placement, Larissa, on existing poles downtown.
Oh, like the pole up there, right?
The point was to get people off their iPhones and to actually look at their surroundings. At some point, we were thinking, should we actually put them on the ground? Looking at their iPhones. So that's really what we're just trying to do, is get people to engage and think and not just walk around town like this.
And because of that short-term focus that many people have walking around town, how many sentences do you think they would stop to read? Seriously, I think we might lose them after 2.
Well, that's a discussion we have had with Tony about the length of the questions. And the intent is he wants people to have to stop for a moment to take it in if they want to take it in. And so he is really committed. He's committed to having the longer text. Of course, we will have to wrestle with fitting the text on that sign and making sure that it doesn't fall to such a small font that it's illegible. So we would work with him to make sure of that. But this is the text that he is working with that he would like to incorporate on the signs. There may be some shifts and some editing that needs to take place once we actually mock it up on the sign to make it work.
Okay, so first of all, Trish, Vicki, all you guys, I read this and I was delighted. I was just absolutely like, oh my gosh. Wow. Do you know, and I just kept reading on and I was just thinking like, this is going to be so awesome. And I was just like, this is the kind of, low budget, high impact, temporary, like lighthearted, but still meaningful and intelligent art that I think is really great for Palo Alto. And I was just like intrigued by how, I don't know, it's like it does take an artist to bring you to sort of like the point of like realization or thoughtfulness about things. I guess the only thing I would have to say is for our city, not for me particularly, but there has to be a place that the feedback can go. I mean, I think that people will see signs and be like, "Oh,
I want to answer.
Where am I gonna put that?" And I really think we need a Facebook presence for this because I just think that that's where people go look, and then they want to see what other people's comments are. And I think that whole dialogue that it starts could be like this really wonderful byproduct. Additionally, So
Right.
am I
So-
taking your
No,
words out of your mouth?
You're absolutely. We're moving in the same direction. Absolutely. So I did meet with Claudia Keith last week about this project, and that it seems as though this project is really asking a lot of questions and looking for a lot of the input that our Palo Alto is seeking as well, and so that it seemed like a logical partnership for the two, and so there may be a way that our Palo Alto could partner with us to capture some of the input and the responses to these thoughtful questions.
You know, just like that, like immediate, like, well, somebody's asking me, they better care about my answer kind of thing. And then I guess the only other thing is, and maybe I'm, incredibly pedestrian in this, but when I go to a museum to see an installation like a true bricks and mortar art, there's a wall that explains the context of the exhibition, who the artist was, why they were important, where they lived during this time. Diebenkorn was living in Berkeley. This was his view out of the window, and it just like, it kind of brings you to the moment. So I feel like he did address a map and some information at City Hall, but I still contend that nobody comes in here. So I feel like there should be maybe a sign of a different color, or, not to take away from the overall aesthetic impact, but like, here's what you're looking at. Here's who he is. This is the point of all of this. Yeah.
Right, and he did say the QR, that he was looking into having a QR code on the back that would help explain it. I don't know how many people will take that step to go to the QR code, but that's something that's definitely on his radar screen and that we would want to work with him on.
And I agree, and I think I was happy to hear about the QR code on the back and the discussions with our Palo Alto, because I do think that's a key component of making this work, given the nature of where we live and that people will want to engage in it. And I think even if the signs can't be printed on the back, even having a sticker with his statement of what he's trying to achieve in a short way with the QR code for more information even would just give people a little bit. And the QR, I think also related to our Palo Alto, like I think it matters also where people are pointed to go to give this feedback. And I think it should be thought through as to whether it does dump you into our Palo Alto website or somewhere else, because is this an art? People will be confused. Is this an art project that is for fun and for just, batting around ideas if you so choose to participate in the art project? Or is it a survey from the city as part of our Palo Alto, right? And our Palo Alto also, I think while they might like to hear what's going on with this, it's not their survey. It's not what they're asking. So I could see people being confused if we don't make it really clear.
Yeah, but that's part of the charm.
I also hope I hope he's available. I think that this for like the high school community would be amazing for like a walking tour during a class for like teachers to get, and then if he could go back and speak that, like, again, this is like a mode of art that isn't our traditional way we think about art. And so it's like, you can also like really get a lot out. You can really reach your community through art, and like it might bring kids to art that might not, and they're sophisticated enough to. And like I think that once you have an expectation of kids, like they're all about it.
I love the idea of whether it's him or someone else giving tours of this work and talking about the nature of this type of work. I think that's
when we
great.
had Mildred Howard give a speech here that day, maybe we could do something like that, a kickoff where Tony gives a speech, engages the community, takes them on a tour, and On the Road was there. We can do an art project. Maybe we can have the kids come up with their own questions, have them participate in the art.
And if that gets videotaped, then that can be part of what they see on the QR code if they go to learn about it, like the Story app,
Yeah, I think a big event to kick it off would be a nice way. And also consistency. I think I've been hearing that too. I think each sign will be consistent, so it's not going to be like one purple, one blue. So hopefully you can track it.
Like if you see it, you'll recognize,
Right.
oh, it's one of those. Right.
But that's like his vision.
Right.
That execution is his vision. We're not.
All of this is his vision. All these questions came from him reading Palo Alto Online, meeting with people. I mean, obviously these are issues. You'll see some of the questions. 7,000 people do not live in Palo Alto but come in for the day to work. Parking is a big issue. All the issues.
of startups moving into storefronts, and we're losing the vitality of downtown to startups and not retail space. I mean, so he's trying to address these concerns.
I'm confused
people in Palo Alto.
because I just heard that these questions are taken from crisis counseling intake questions and ESL.
Right, but he met with us and we spent time with him, and
So is it from Palo Alto online? Where does the text come from? Is it
From English, primarily from English as second language and the intake, but the themes and the topics that he chose to go after are based on what's been topical and in the news here in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
yeah, he met with other business owners, and we took him to meet with different people so he could get a finger on the pulse. Yeah, so he knew what was going on.
Well, I really like this project. I think it's a great project, and I think it's part of like discovery. You're walking someplace and you see the sign, and I'm not sure if you really need a map or something. Maybe a map and a central point to where they could go and maybe find out where all the signs are, because you may not know that there are a series of signs. You may run into one or two. The library in San Jose State, the city library there has a public art project. There's 34 objects in there, but none are identified. There's no map. So it's a part of discovery as you go through the museum, or through the library. And if you really want to know, there is a map. You can get a map. But that's all part of that discovery. But I share Larissa's concern. I think that it may be too much to read at one point. There's studies been done, and about 3 lines is about what people will be interested in. Beyond that, then they kind of lose interest. So if they're standing there too long reading, I think you may lose some interest. I think that can be a problem.
And potential for engagement.
Yeah,
Like,
and then so you come to the next
a couple
one.
provoking questions, and then if you ask 5 more, all of a sudden it's like, wait. And especially when they're on different topics. So you're asking a question, somebody might think quickly with, oh, wow, I know how I would answer that. Asking another one kind of related, okay. But when you have conversation, typically it's two-way. You're not asked 10 questions. Like then if they were to respond with the QR code to which of the 10 questions are they responding? Yeah.
And then you come to the next one, and it's a bunch of questions again. And do you stand and read those, or do you just kind of walk past those? So I think.
I mean,
there's
Tony's very cerebral and takes us philosophically very serious. So, I mean, I think that he'll listen to us.
And looking at these other ones, though, I don't see any other sign that has even the sign that has the most content is maybe less than 15 words.
Bigger one, but
Yeah.
I think that's more the square format.
Now, see that one statement there has 3 questions in it.
Yep.
So if you only ask one question, you probably get a person to really think about it deeply and into it. But you got, yeah. So
And a lot of these have about 3 questions.
So I'm thinking that maybe again might want to, you got to get it on the sign.
Well, I would certainly support feeding back the recommendation from the commission to maybe look at the length, but I don't think that this is the type of installation that you're going to go down and take in, all the signs at one
And it's not to
time.
the point
No.
either necessarily to gain feedback either. It can be
True.
just
So it's like,
Right. It's just to get you to think.
you go down, you see one sign. You're at another part of the city, you see another sign. It's kind of maybe one at a time. It is a lot. But then I'm kind of excited that that's like this sort of impactful
And you're
thing
talking
too.
about having them all over the city. You're not talking about having them in one spot, are you?
Well, they would.
Because then that would be.
It's a path in about an 8-block radius, beginning and ending at City Hall. So as people are going through downtown, as you said, and as Ben alluded to, that there is a sense of discovery. So you may notice one and think, wow, that's kind of interesting. And then you may not notice the next 3, and then you stumble on another one, and then you start looking for them. So it can really alter someone's experience in
Well,
down.
If they're going to be identical, then you look at, you've already read that sign, and you keep walking, and then you see another one. Is that the same sign? What do I mean? So you go check it out. So that, yeah.
Yeah, and my main concern is that when you are walking, that it is close to eye level. So have we talked about how high they're going to be? Because if
That's
it's
what
from a car and you're looking up, that's not what our audience. We're trying to get the people, the pedestrians.
We're
So
working with planning to make sure that the text is of adequate size
Good.
to be read, but also we're going to have some height clearances we need to clear so
I
that
know.
nobody hits their head on it.
Okay,
So
good.
That's a staff issue that we're working on, so we'll make sure that it's safe and that it is legible.
There's ADA concerns and stuff.
I think it's funny that, if people start discovering these different ones that are reading all of these questions about your city and then pop onto the one that says, generally speaking, would you describe yourself as an optimistic person? All of a sudden it sort of points, to like a more personal question. And there's just one that does that, It's
And I think everyone will
very
burst out laughing.
funny, It's very funny.
So I was going to suggest that we actually make a motion to approve the language for this Anthony DiCenza piece for this temporary.
I second to your motion.
Is there any further discussion?
Well, I think that Elise will feed back the general highlights of the.
Yes.
But thank you, Tony. Sorry, you're not here, and
Yes.
we're
sorry,
very
we have the flu.
happy.
All in favor of our motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. All right. Motion stands. Thank you, or carries. Thank you. Okay, so Elise, you had some update for us on the City Hall new media artwork that we moved from action to non-action. That will start off our non-action items.
Yes. So the selection panel did meet today to review 5 really interesting and diverse proposals for the City Hall lobby. There was a lot of discussion at the end about, there were 3 of them that scored very closely, and the panel, I think, wanted a little bit more information from those artists. So staff is looking at what the next steps are going to be, but I believe we're going to circle back to some of the artists for more information, and we will have an update for you at the next meeting.
And can you just quickly fill us in again on the timeline? Because they haven't started construction, I don't think. So
No, and
it's not
there's-
apparent if they have.
I think there is a pause in their time schedule, which is good for us.
Yes.
But I was hoping to use that pause to be able to get us a little further ahead. But we'll just see where it goes. But I don't have a definitive timeline on the construction as of this moment.
Okay, so even if we're into May, and so your hope is that you'll have another meeting with your committee? Do you guys have that on the calendar right now?
We're regrouping. Our plan A was to have a selection to bring forward this evening, and
Right.
that didn't happen. So I'll have an update in the next week or so about what the new timeline is.
Okay.
Can you tell us what the makeup of the panel is for this project?
Sure. So we have the project architect, we have the head of IT, we have Commissioner Vice Chair Miyagi, we have Camille Utterbach, and we have Mary Rubin, who manages public art for San Jose.
Go on. It was an interesting panel discussion, and at the end, the feeling was that there wasn't a project that really, because it's City Hall here, and you want to have something that's really great, because you don't want people walking. Yeah, and this is kind of going to be the flagship piece for the public art program. So that's why the discussion. There was one project that a lot of people liked, but it still didn't have that feel. So that's why staff is going to go back and get a little more clarification from the artists.
And a question regarding existing art that's now in City Hall lobby. There are several public art pieces there now.
Well, the ceiling piece, as it stands now, is scheduled to stay. They're going to change the lighting so it's actually legible, which would be great. What was interesting was that a number of the artists, all of the artists showed the piece staying in situ, and several of the artists actually used it as a jumping off point for inspiration for their artwork, because the text there is about open government and the function of City Hall. So that is still scheduled to stay. The glass piece we will need to relocate, and we're not clear where we're going to put that yet, but that one's a mobile piece, as mobile as it can be for its size.
Were any of the artworks interactive, so
yes.
people could give their feedback about what they thought was going on in City Hall
I
or in
believe
the government, what
they
needs
all
to be
were.
changed?
Yeah.
That was the criteria in the call.
Good.
Yeah.
And you felt like that was met?
In most cases, I like them all, but I didn't like one that much more than the other, and I wish I could have picked pieces out of each one to come up with a project. And I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know that forgotten language piece was even there.
It's so easy to miss.
Yeah.
Just walk through with that.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta look up.
It's forgotten.
I was reading the proposal, and they mentioned that.
It was there.
I had to look it up, actually.
It's okay, I didn't know it either when I came on the commission.
Yeah. It was at a meeting, I think, one night. Oh, look up when you go out.
Here it is. No, they kept talking about the art pieces, the public art pieces that were in
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so now we're on to item number 4, which is the discussion of our joint meeting with the City Council that we had on April 7th. And we did have kind of a one-pager summary that we received from the City Council staff about their comments. And I had made notes myself, and I thought I would just kick off the discussion by highlighting a couple of things that I thought I heard and see if others added to that, and just kind of talk through how we might incorporate some of those ideas, or if we already had them, I think, on our radar, as I sort of think that might be the case. But the top one that you might all recall was that the idea of being able to integrate art with parking, because there's imminently a parking structure or two, I even heard. I knew of one, but I didn't know possibly two. So that was one. I liked the idea of the walking tour, which I heard, and trying to do sort of docent-led tours or something, and then just the timing of the Anthony DeChenda would be just great as a kickoff. And certainly we've talked about Mitchell Park, and that's a great one. Larissa brought that up in the meeting. The notion of temporary versus permanent art, and I think really what the underlying concern there is when some of these really great temporary things go away, do we have something to backfill, or do we switch energy somewhere else? And I think it's just the nature of the concern of, everyone's going to get attached to things and we really love them, i.e. Aurora or others, and what do we do next? And then having a bold master plan to think big. I think Palo Alto likes to think of itself as a big place, and so we wouldn't want to have, in the words of one of the council members, punyism as the leading. Yes, exactly. I saw it in the notes. So those were some of the big ideas that I had taken away, and I wondered if others had other things they wanted to add on to that to discuss.
And regarding those, because those also were my big takeaways, are we wanting to talk tonight get into that in particular, about how
we might? Well, so one thought I had is, of course, taking full advantage of some of our commissioners last evening here with us. If you have ideas that you want to pass along, certainly for me, I feel like the retreat is kind of the opportunity to prioritize and put some of those into the municipal arts plan. And I think they kind of were going to already be there, even as we go through the master art plan, the prioritization, some of that would be there. And obviously the kind of quick win things or the temporary things, because some of these other ones will take a while, for example, even the art plan. So the short answer is yes, we can talk about any of those in detail, since we won't have you around after tonight to talk about it, so go for it. But you'll also be invited.
You can't go to something non-agendized, so.
Right, no.
Context of the joint
Of those topics that we just raised, that were raised at the joint meeting. And then also you're invited to the retreat as well to talk if they're allowed to come. So this won't have to be your only opportunity. We could talk about it then as well. But
If we ever have a date.
Well, I'm hoping we have new commissioners next meeting, and we set a date, so that we'll have it not later than the middle of June. That's my goal. Larissa, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll just comment on a couple of those, because I agree on the takeaway about some of the major topics that came up that night. I think that the parking structure one, which was mentioned by a number of folks, would be a great one to propose that our innovation subcommittee take a look at do a topic on looking at parking garages of other projects that have been done. Nadia has collected them already. Fabulous, yeah. So those are just to be able to know what's out there, since we can't tour all the fabulous
projects in California, U.S., and around the world.
Fabulous. Are you finding as you're doing that, I know this has been an issue for our innovation subcommittee, that the dollar amounts are readily available as far as what these things cost?
Not always. For those, you have to contact programs and prop them just in person. Usually, the budget's not announced.
And what about also what comes up with regards to projects like that, or whether a design is created through the architecture of the garage itself versus an artist who is in collaboration?
Really, I'm encountering a very wide spectrum of projects, anything from wayfinding, lighting, and just beautification and creating a more welcoming space for people to use these amenities. Yeah, very exciting. You know, a lot of innovative ideas. Yeah, art, technology, it's all there. So
great, that's great. On the temporary versus permanent art, one thing that comes to mind for me is back when we initially launched the temporary art. What do we call that document? Well, we have one. We don't really have a program right now, but we have legal statement about if people want to submit temporary art to the city, that they have that as a guideline. We had talked about at some point the idea of, just like we've talked about launching a mural program. We've talked about temporary art as well. So in other words, taking it one step further, even in selecting a couple of locations like this one, and saying, we invite proposals for this location with these parameters. It needs to fit within this and that. There is or is not an anchoring system. I mean, this came up also with Rinconada Park master planning. The feedback we gave into that was it would be great to have a space within that park where there's an anchoring system that then you can go out and say to artists, there is the system in place where projects with these kinds of parameters will be accepted. And so when that came up, Rinconada Park was one place, and front of City Hall was another. That seemed at that time like natural places to go and open it up to calls for art that would do that. So, I mean, I would just suggest that as Aurora's coming, 6 months before that project's going to end, could be a nice time to put out a call like that, especially because, I mean, these things will be going on way before a master art plan will be done, right?
Exactly.
They'll be needing to, right? It's just something in the meantime. And it sounds like, too, that, sharing about what the value and what the difference is in temporary versus permanent art would be helpful, too. It was sort of raised by City Council. Well, wouldn't it be great to just have this one go permanent, but without understanding that very different not only different types of projects, but things that are designed to be temporary versus permanent, even in what they're made of and how they're installed.
And how they're evaluated. What's going to go in, something that's temporary is a totally different set of criteria aesthetically than maybe a permanent work.
And part of its excitement is that it's something there and it changes and then it's not one day and it's something else, And I heard a lot of excitement from council on that topic of it's exciting to see something new, right? And then do you guys, on the docent-led walking tours, we've brought that up before and talked about the idea of there are docents who apply through the art center to give tours of the art center, but at this point in time, it doesn't go beyond that. And I don't know if it's something that public art could dovetail on, and with when they ask for people interested in being docents, whether there could be a box that says, are you interested in giving public art tours, or what you guys think of that. It seems like potentially a natural without having to launch a separate call for docents for public art.
I know when I had this conversation briefly, Nadia had mentioned, and she put it up on the screen, that when people sign up for the email newsletter, that's a good way of capturing interested people in the community, or otherwise even broader, who could be possibly that. We might even find a way to have a box that says, would you be interested in training to learn about the art collection of the city and leading a tour or something like that.
Absolutely, or interested
Did I
in
represent that
in,
well, Nadia? Was that okay?
It could even be for people who felt that they would be interested in or qualified to be on a selection panel.
Exactly.
Could be another one.
Exactly.
Right.
Right. We talked about that. That's a great one. Yeah.
I think docent-led tours are a good idea, but in practice, and I've done some, and you can have one person and you could have 10. It's real. It's a hit or miss thing.
As far as how many show up.
How many
for the
show
tour?
up, or if people even show up for the tour. One thing you can do is have literature to have self-guided tours
Yeah.
of different parts of the collection, and do something like that within walking distance, a few blocks, to do something like that. Docent-led tour is a great idea because you really get the interplay between the group and the docent, and you get information about things. But in practice, it's kind of hard to implement.
I could see that, and how maybe thinking through where they might happen and being around events, like we were talking about Mitchell Park happening around opening events, and then self-guided for the. I could see a Cal Ave tour, which launches off from the farmers market or something, someplace where people already are gathering.
And this could also be part of that that pull-out page that you were talking about as far as the walking tour. And if you had it designated, all the person would have to do is just go online, pull that map out, and then those spots would be designated. So that would probably be more helpful, because strangers will come to town all the time wanting to do this, rather than
having it online.
Right.
When we get eventually the QR code thing enables them to also just do a walking tour of whatever piece they want, as opposed to having to do a whole plan also.
So I don't know where that is in the plans for the next group, but that may be something you guys might want to continue to think about. Yeah.
That's all I had.
All right. Anyone else want to offer?
I like the idea. It seemed like putting art with the parking structures was key, which I think will come naturally anyway with the 1% for art. It's just a matter of us getting involved at the beginning. And I think that's nice for beautification for the city. I just think having a place to meet and gather or create conversations would be something we should think about too. Like that's what Tony's questions are doing, is creating a conversation, and it just, or a nice place to gather, like let's meet under Aurora, let's go there. I think that we need to continue to create the dialogue and the connection with the community rather than just something on a parking structure. I thought that was, yeah, conflict kitchen would be great. Yeah, definitely.
You'll have something like that when they finish the Cal Ave Plaza, so hopefully.
Yeah, our new fountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They remember they're putting the seating and all the other.
Yes.
the other group.
Yeah. But I think that's really what Palo Alto's missing, is being connected to the community. I think everybody's trying to be connected to the community instead of just looking at your iPad or at a parking structure, but to have a place to meet, gather, talk, whether it's Aurora or the fountain on Cal Ave. I think that's going to be, that was our main concern about having that seating around it. So stay focused on that, on the community and bringing it together, because we have a tendency to be disconnected.
Mitchell Park should probably also bring connectedness and direct to the community with that park, and that's there as well. So
Yeah.
number of spaces, we just don't know what.
Anybody else had any thoughts to share? As I said earlier, I think what we'll do is follow up on the retreat. Did you want to say something, Ellie? Or?
I just wanted to say something on in relationship to council, because when I first remember us coming on here, the first council meeting was pretty tough, and it wasn't very pretty, and we weren't sure who liked us and who didn't like us. I think that was actually the first meeting, and I even think we had we had commissioners who resigned in protest, and there was a whole bunch of interesting things going on, about different things that made it a little fun, But when looking back, a little fun. But I like to say that after that particular year, every year of the 6 years that I've been here, council has always, every council person has supported us and has, and particularly after they have come on and served us as our liaisons. So I like to just say publicly, thank you. Because I don't know how many other groups have this kind of an autonomous love relationship with the council in terms of art. So anyway, thanks.
Okay, well, if there's not any further discussion on that, I think it will be continued, as I said, in the retreat when we get that together. So we'll move on to our subcommittee reports. So we just have our governance, our outreach, and our innovation. And so I thought maybe we might kick off with governance. Would that work for Ben, Larissa, and myself? We did have a chance to meet and had a lunch one day on California Avenue and talked about some of this. And we tried to, I think Ben and I tried to tap Larissa's brain as much as possible and extricate anything left in her computer back to us so that we don't miss out, though she says that she'll still come talk to us even after she's gone. So we did have some good products that were created that I think everybody has seen, which is this notion around kind of what would be publicly accessible on a website versus what would be maybe commissioner information, a transition material for new commissioners, and or resources for us. So that was one thing I thought we might mention. Also, I brought up at the last meeting the process documents around kind of how we do percent for art municipal projects versus private projects versus, say, a maintenance CIP kind of project, and so on. And then I think there have been a few others that Ben and Larissa and I talked about doing. So we haven't, it's really kind of on my shoulders at the moment to try to put some of those down. And so I need to do that. And then I guess the third part of that was, I thought there was one more that I wanted to raise. Oh, I guess it was just this one, the priority document, but that kind of ended up being listed in the both website or Dropbox. I think each one of those was covered, so that was.
They are, and dovetailing onto that, what I'm working on that I know at least Ben had some input into is an FAQ document that I will hand over the draft that I've been working on to staff before the end of this month when I'm no longer officially a commissioner. And one of the questions I have for this group as I started working on this, initially the purpose of it was to have an FAQ for new commissioners to answer questions from people coming on about what they might need to know right up front. We all had the experience of joining the commission and needing to figure that out over time. As I've started it seems like much of it could be very useful for anyone to read, not just for a new commissioner. And so my suggestion is to make it an FAQ that could be read by the public or a new commissioner, anybody, or a potential commissioner, anybody interested in engaging with the commissioner, wanting to know what it is the commission does, what is public art in Palo Alto, kind of at least starting with that, because I think we don't have something like that now. And then I think there definitely are more detailed questions that commissioners joining want to have, but often they're very specific and they might come up in a meeting like this, or it might be a new commissioner calling and asking Elise, but it almost is more down than to the project level, or who should I talk to in the city? Or I think the general questions, I felt like even questions that were about what does a commissioner, what responsible for, how much of a time commitment is it? Those are things that I think we should just answer them and make this whole thing something that could be posted on the website and part of a commissioner agreed binder. Does that suit? Does that sound good as far as a goal of it? And so I'll take what I'm drafting and send it to you guys, and you guys can all decide what you want to do with it, what you will. Okay. Then my following question, based on our governance meeting, then I met soon thereafter with Elise and Nadia and learned from Nadia, so I wanted to ask about an update tonight on that, which was the Dropbox piece of that is in the. So I want to ask about that, and we talked also about the whole prospect of that what we all have now is a printed green binder document when we first arrive on the commission, can, in theory, be all online because all of the legal aspects of the city policies and ordinances are online. It'd be a matter of just having links to those rather than the green binder.
Yes, so the document that I believe I circulated with you a couple of weeks ago is on the screen. And I'm ready to move on with Dropbox. I just need you to and collectively decide on which documents go where. And it's just a matter of, linking your emails to the Dropbox for the access. So yes, let's just confirm which documents. Most of the documents that are listed under the website are already there. We're finalizing some documents currently, but most of them are already available on the Public Art website. And yes, let's just finalize the Dropbox list, and we'll put it there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Dropbox worked great because that's where the City Hall Public Art projects were put.
It's a very user-friendly tool, and it's free. Yeah.
And so, what will be the procedure going forward as we want to add more documents to it?
So we'll share the ownership of that folder. You just need to have a Dropbox application on either your laptop or even your smartphones. It's a great app. And every time that either staff or commissioner, makes edits, or any additions to an existing documents, you'll see that update on your screen.
But we have to be careful about if commissioners can't make edits to those documents and have them posted, that those have to come from staff.
Okay, but you'll always have access to the fresh version. So it just eliminates any duplicates.
And so the process, it sounds like, would be to, if you worked on a new document or had a suggestion for an edit, would then be
just
to go to
communicate
staff,
straight with
and
staff.
then you'd be responsible for posting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I think it will be great to have this shared space for documents that, be great. Thanks.
A little greener.
Yes.
Yeah, is there any reason why, the meeting documents or agendas couldn't be put up there before the meeting as opposed to
Well, they get posted on the city site so that they're publicly accessible. So what we don't want to wind up doing in the Dropbox is having duplications of monthly communications. Those are posted in specific places in the city where they're accessible to everyone. So this is meant to be more sort of commissioner tools that are more stagnant, your toolbox.
So it is duplicated now in our inboxes, though. So in theory, we could get a link then, rather than getting it emailed. You're being kind to email it, so we don't all have to, I guess, download it then from the city site. Yeah. It's been nice to move to that electronic, though, so we used to get it all mailed in packets in the mail, right? Yeah.
So that's actually our wrap on governance, unless you had anything further to add, Ben? No. Okay. Thank you, Larissa.
Sure. On outreach,
We did too meet on California Avenue.
We're going to come back to
The place of
University
me.
Avenue, I'm sure, one of these days, or Hamilton. Because these are equally great streets in Palo Alto.
Yes.
Not to mention,
Lytton.
I said that one. I did. I said Hamilton, Lytton. But I was trying to think even further down, like Middlefield, Midtown. We're going to go down there too and have lunch. We are. I'm sure we are. So anyway, outreach. You met on California Avenue, please.
So the priority out of outreach, aside from lists and lists of outreach potential partners and how to get that sort of like in a prioritized list, is the notion that any commissioner coming on should be able to outreach to whomever, however, whenever, like they're ready to go. So it's the notion of having a written presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that can be accessed, that can be tweaked depending on the audience or enhanced. And I'm just in the process of trying to see how many of those exist out there to try to come up with one sort of master presentation. And as I'm thinking about it, because it even came up at my interview last night, this notion of a docent tour, perhaps we should have a tour, you know, that you could be ready to give the tour if asked. Because the truth is, I mean, it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but we are ambassadors for the program. So, you know, maybe in teaching it is how you know, are directly outreaching, you know, audiences. The logistics sound and the scheduling and how to get a docent for a group, and I think the way you kind of do it is you say every Saturday public art tours take place at this certain place, but you know, you have to have somebody to man that, and maybe we have like a burgeoning docent that's coming on the commission that, like, you know, is just, that's their thing. But I think that those two documents to start, and then I wanted to ask the entire commission if they have individuals that they think, as Ben did with bringing the fellow commissioner from San Jose to outreach to us, we want that. So, you know, you guys are all going. But yeah, no.
Suggestions.
We'll be your outreach partner.
Okay,
still.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. So if you have any presentations, can you send them to me so we can make a master?
Overall of the
Yeah, I mean, I know one existed that
right that's going
Patricia
in the Dropbox.
did, but like I want to make that a little more meaty. Yeah.
So I was a docent for many years at the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, and they do train you in a certain way, and it's more than talking to people, it's actually asking questions and getting people to think. So there is a certain way to give a tour instead of just saying, oh, it was done in this way, and da-da-da. You know, you want to start a dialogue with your group. So I could go through my notes and see if there's some guidelines on.
Would you care to start the day?
Yeah. Yeah, the second job. But yeah, I mean, that was my background in art, was a docent, and it was 20 hours of training, you know, from 9 to 3 every day for a week and then you had to come up with what and you could pick what you want to talk about, but you had to have your questions and your speech basically prepared around this piece of artwork. So there's a method to being a docent.
And if I may add to this point, I know that San Jose Museum of Art has an extensive docent program, and exactly, it's a very hands-on training. And I actually know a few docents from the museum, and I can just ask if they would be interested in coming and just sort of sharing their experience throughout training and their work with audiences, and just, you know, just give us guidelines.
Well, I mean, let me be clear here, because I know the head of education at the Cantor Museum and the head of the docent program at the Cantor Museum, and that program is a 3-year full-time program. So I'm not in any way, shape saying that we're going to mirror any sort of like, yeah, like grown-up docent. It was just more like people that want to know more about public art. And the questioning that I got last night from City Council was, it's just one more means of outreach to community. Do you think it's a good idea? A lot of people could be receptive to that type of thing. So it was just more.
And I think that having a further conversation about what that would look like in this context would be helpful, and perhaps inviting the person at the Palo Alto Art Center who's in charge of their docent program would be a good conversation to start it, because if they go through any kind of docent training already to do that, then it could be just that this would be a little curriculum in the form of getting up to speed on a few of the key tours of public art to add, instead of starting something completely from scratch.
I'm a docent at the Japanese American Museum in San Jose, and we went through some training there, but it's like Trish was saying, it's just not giving out facts. You have to know the people that you're with. You got to kind of gauge them and interact with them, and because you want their experience to be good too. It's not just this was such and such and such and just walk down the line. It can't be that way, or else you're going to have a bad tour. You're going to have a bad docent program. So I think it's important that you talk about that, because you can implement a docent program, but if it's bad, then don't have it.
Totally agree.
So, and that's a tricky thing. A docent program is a very tricky thing to implement. I mean, with the public art, it may be a little different, but you still have to know, because you're going to get questions. All kinds of questions out of left field that you wouldn't even have thought about the pieces of art. So, it's all that and how you react to that.
Good point.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. So I don't believe we have anything from Innovation. I don't have anything, and I think Commissioner Toback is our only remaining commissioner on the Innovation Committee at this point. So anyway, we'll move on from that to our next agenda item, which is a little bit of a segue in that it was our collection review. And I say that kind of thinking about curating and docents and so on. So as sort of the really seat of the pants here, I was going to put you outgoing commissioners on the spot to choose from the collection a couple of your favorite pieces to tell us about, and presumably, they'll, even as they're scrolling by, or if you knew the artist or you knew, whether it was a sculpture or painting or what have you. So, Trish, do you want to start us off? And we got a little bit of it when the city council, that was where the idea came, when you were doing the collection database and you all had so much vast information. I was really impressed, so I wanted to at least at the very last meeting here get a little bit from each of you.
Well, I think the older pieces of artwork would be Albuquerque. I love, because it's literally 600 feet from my house, so it's a big one for our family. We see it every day. We talk about it every day, and I think it's a big piece. It's a statement piece for the city. It's not puny, as Gail Price said, which I think is something, we should take into consideration. We want big sculptures that make a statement. So I love Albuquerque. And for the new pieces, I think you guys know I'm very proud of the Bears, because we created that opportunity. We did it quickly and efficiently within once we selected it, it was a record. And, that was kind of a goal with our committee, was to get things moving quickly, because things had been taking so long to decommission art. Like, that took 6 months to years. So we got new, fresh art, and I just thought it was, a great piece of artwork that is integrated within the trees and the whole forest of redwoods and the river of rocks. It's such a fabulous park that I wanted to make sure it wasn't just a sculpture in the park, but something that integrated into and took advantage of the river of rocks.
So we'll have to remember it's called Wild.
Wild, yeah, Wild.
Come to know them as the Bears, but
Wild. Yeah.
And also, just for new commissioners, which are besides, this was an example of the commission going to a community group and understanding what they wanted for their park, them coming here, putting forth a proposal, getting feedback from the community, and then the art commission around the information they had gathered from all of their neighbors. And they came in and they were really excited, and it was a very compelling argument, and everybody was just really excited about the project.
Yeah, because it wasn't a 1% for art. It was something that we created, which was, nice, because you weren't tied to that 1%. And of course, Aurora will always hold a special place in my heart, since we worked day and night. And like I said, I think it's a great place to gather and meet and talk. And, I meet my friends that live in Menlo Park. We'll say, let's go meet at Aurora. And everybody knows about it, and it's beautiful when it's lit up at night, and it's a great place to talk. And I think that's the common denominator about art, is that everybody experiences it and everybody can talk about it. So that's what I like about Aurora, that it starts a conversation. So those are my 3 favorite pieces.
And another private citizen that made
Yeah, it all started when a little girl went up to my daughter and said, "Would you like to sign a petition?" And she said, "By the way, do you know my mom's on the art commission?" And then we met with this little girl at our school, and Julia and Hirschman and her brother Sam, and that's how the dialogue began, was by Julia. And I think she was in 2nd grade at that time, went to my daughter who was in 4th grade and asked her to sign the petition, and that's how it began. So anybody can be empowered in Palo Alto to get something done if they take the time and effort and
Raise our bar.
Because we don't pay for temporary projects. And so far, we haven't. That particular one was inspired because you guys were going to raise the money. Yeah.
So thank you, Trish.
yes, thank you. It's been fab.
Larissa, do you want to take a turn?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a nice question to ask. The first one that popped to mind for me, because it was a favorite piece of mine before I came on the commission, and I remember it was the question they asked when we came, is sunflowers in front of Country Sun. And I think, it was just always a piece that I had noticed, and I liked many aspects of it. So it's Jennifer Reed. I liked that, first of all, it created this parklet. That it removed, I think, was it 2 parking spaces to create the space for sitting, and I gained a real appreciation for this piece as well when they came back to the city and were proposing on some other projects, and I got to learn about how the seating, just even on the ground, how that was designed so that it would fulfill all the requirements for also being a bollard type structure, so no cars could drive through and so forth. And I hadn't even appreciated that part before, how they build those types of seating. But I really liked that it created space for people to gather, and as an art installation. And I really also liked that that it represents one of Palo Alto's values by having the sunflowers with their solar panels up inside that collect the sun during the day and then create the lights at night. I like that it did something that also represents Palo Alto. So that for all of these reasons, and that this was an art installation. And I think a lot of people don't think of it as an art piece or as part of the public collection. They just know it for what it is, and it gets used a lot. I think it's interesting that also this was, back in 2003, before this whole parklet thing kind of became popular, and now that's being talked about more, how to do that. And I still think it's done really well today, even more than 10 years later. So next, another piece that's always piqued my interest, and it's actually, I think, not posted up in here, is the old Palo Alto Medical Center murals by Victor Arturnoff. And they are on the old Palo Alto Medical Center building that is now, the plans for that building are for it to become the historical Palo Alto History Museum, I think is what it's called. And I think I like those pieces for a variety of reasons. I love that they carry this sort of intrigue about the news of the day, of how they were provocative in their day and were talked about, and they're quite beautiful, and the history also of the artist himself and his history in this area as being a professor at Stanford, but also he worked on in many famous pieces, including the murals in Coit Tower, and so I like that we have this here and that it's part of our story and history, and I think it's a fun story, and they're beautiful.
Yeah. So was that a city?
Interestingly, they were originally they were part of Palo Alto Medical Center, right? So I don't think it was they weren't. This was even before I think there was a public art commission or program. Yeah. But I was told back when, so I don't know how it falls as part of our collection or whether they're still considered public art, private art in a public place, but I was told that they do, in fact, the care of them, it belongs to the city now. It's a city building now. they're on a city building, just like as if they were on City Hall, so that building now belongs to the city. So indeed, they are part of our collection. I think it's interesting that if you guys have noticed, the new medical center has nods to them on the front of their building. There are three or four circular murals that were kind of done as a new remake of pieces of those old murals. Yeah, I noticed that one day. Mm-hmm. 30s? 30s or 40s? Yeah. Long time. And then I think that too, just what I also was going to, I'm looking forward to with regard to temporary art, seeing the University Avenue tunnels. I'm really excited to see that project unfold and get to witness that. And then the last bit I just wanted to share, I realized we're both sharing our three-dimensional art, and that I just want to leave here for the commission is to really think about, and this is part of our long-range planning, what about the two-dimensional collection? What about it as public art? I mean, how can we share it? If we can't share it, then what's the purpose of us having it? What is the purpose of it with regard to the public of Palo Alto? And to that, I'll just leave that as a question. Yep. So those are the ones that I wanted to share.
This is the latest addition to our two-dimensional collection. It's beautiful. Beautiful work by Michal Gavish.
Oh, this was the one that last time we learned it was the Coverly artist. Is that true? This was,
exactly.
Right. Okay, great.
So the
Thanks.
work was accessioned to the collection just last month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The information is available, and the artwork and the artist were featured in our latest images.
Right. I knew I had seen it. All right, Allie, how about you?
Okay, if you go back to the one that you were calling Sunflowers, I think that's the wrong name, because the Jennifer piece was called Poppies. I think she told me those were poppies. So.
But the name said Jeffrey, not Jennifer. I was wondering.
It's her and her husband,
But
husband
it
and
didn't
wife.
have both names, that's why.
There's two identical records because we can't do them both searchable. So
Got
when
it.
you look up,
Yep.
when you
Okay.
when you look up the piece.
Okay,
you
so
can do
those were supposed to be poppies, right? Yes. And at night, and when I love those pieces, but I didn't know that at night, because now I have at the time I had a studio over on the California Avenue, off of California Avenue. I still do. And at night, I came out one night and I saw this structure lit up, and it was actually looking the color of poppy. And I was trying to figure out how did that happen. And so the next day, somebody told me that there's solar lighting in there. There was solar, and this is before a lot of people even thought about using the solar power in this particular in a piece of artwork. So this was one of my favorites. It's always been one of my favorites. And then I found out that as you get to talking about it, you find out from different people little pieces of information. And I found out that Jennifer was a Palo grad, which was interesting because I'm also a Palo grad. So it's one of those connective things that you say, oh wow, Palo grad did that. So that's one of my favorites. And that was prior to becoming a commissioner. That piece has always been captivating. One of the other pieces that I liked, I think it's called Haiku, the big red piece out by the golf course. Yeah. And occasionally, when I used to have a lot of time, I used to play golf. And that piece would always greet you, but for some reason, I never thought of it as a piece of, I just never thought about it as public art. I don't know, it just seemed like it was perfect there. It always stood out because it's so brightly red. And then I think one day Elise and I went to take a look at it because we wanted to see if it needed any maintenance. And we found that it was really dirty red. But, you never knew that from the outside. If you drove up, it was always a big, beautiful red piece. So that'll always be another one of the pieces that I like. And I also walk out there sometimes. So that piece always just... You notice it. There's no way that anybody not know that piece is there. So let's see. Another, I think one of my Okay, this is going to tell you that the difference that commissioners don't really. I'm going with the people's name for it. Okay, this is not the name of this. So when you start looking for it.
Oh, I know where she's going.
Okay, and this is the bicyclist.
Oh no, I had it wrong.
You had it wrong. I have another one though. I have another one like that one. Okay, so yeah, this was one of the first pieces that I actually saw installed, and I went from the beginning to the end of this piece along with Elise. Bliss in the Moment, which is a dedication to Mr. Bliss, who was also part of the first board of directors for the Bay Area Trail, and it's located right on our portion of the Palo Alto portion of the Bay Trail. And it has also become, I think, one of the, if you want to call our destination pieces, as they call them, because there's not a time when you drive by there where you don't see either bicyclists who are out taking pictures with it, or just people walking with their kids, but everybody seems to like it. So that's one of the ones that I think, if you want to talk about the newer ones, I like that one. My last piece is the pieces at Mitchell Park. Again, a little bit of favoritism because we worked on all of those pieces from the beginning to whenever the finish is going to be. And I just got, and I think the Beasley project was the first one that we came in that was the major art piece that the city was able to purchase using the public 1% funds, and so this too will be a piece that I'm just excited. So when the library eventually open, I will definitely be at that opening. So and I think that's my final piece. And it's not the only piece. I like all of the Mitchell Park collection is what I'm going to call it. So it's not just one piece. So anyway. I really have more, but I just can't think of their names,
That's okay. We have some updated images of the old one that have just been loaded in.
Oh, they're in now. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the kids are going to like those as well as the bears because you can actually sit on them.
Oh,
yeah.
They're not going to get too hot in the sun, are
No, they'll be all right.
they? Pardon? Because
They'll be all right. There's a big canopy, and so the way the sun, I think it'll be
Happy
okay.
Hollow in San Jose, they put in a whole bunch of
Right.
bronze ones, and they can't they get too
Can't
hot.
sit on them.
They should guard them.
Yeah.
The reason to plant a tree.
Yeah.
So this would formally close out Amanda's last meeting, although I'm hoping and fully expecting you're going to be renewed to the next term. But would you like to offer up a couple of yours in the conclusion of this term of your role?
Well, I have to say, I'm not as familiar with the collection as I'd like to be. But you guys, I should have gone first then, because
They named all the things you worked on.
First of all, I mean,
It's
you know,
true.
beyond knowing that the one was called Kaiku, that is probably my favorite aesthetically. And then I really love the new ones that are coming to the collection. I don't know the name of it. That's next door in Chambers, and the Nathan Oliveira sculpture that's coming to New York.
Yes.
So I just like I mean, it's like beauty kind of trumps all when it comes to art for me. I mean, I do appreciate like all of this, but you know, it is about beauty for me. So, yeah.
When Larissa actually said sunflowers, I was thinking the sunflower mural that's on the
On the wall there.
wall, because that's also a favorite because you can't miss it. On California Avenue, when you're walking that way, that's the first thing that you see, and everybody talks about that. And I think Darlene, who was also an assistant to us or staff person to us, used to tell me all these stories about it that I didn't know about. And one of those was that this was an African artist and he had just gotten here and somebody saw his work, at a farmer's market or something. And they commissioned him to do this piece. And nobody knew what it was really going to look like. And everybody talks about it. As a matter of fact, it has a web presence all to its own. So if you go on and look it up, Palo Alto and then sunflowers, it comes up and there's a little bit of discussion there. So you might want to take a look at that and see if you want to put some of that information and put it in our database, because it may not be that much of a story that we have, but they have more of a story. So.
And regarding sunflowers, and to your point of them being poppies, I'm remembering that I believe that I learned about that it was called sunflowers because they are sun flowers. They're flowers to reflect
Okay.
sun.
Okay.
They're
And I
as opposed to-
solar.
So I don't know if it was originally two words, sunflowers, or if then it just became one because then it sounds like a
because right
sunflower, but they
there
are
at the same
popping.
spot, you got the sunflowers
Yes,
right there.
the other mural, right.
All right, well, thank you for that collection review. That was actually a good little review. What more to say? Okay, so we've got announcements. Elise, do you have anything?
I have one. Excuse me. San Jose has named new public art director, Jennifer Easton, to replace Barbara Goldstein, which I'm really happy about because now it shows that San Jose is going to continue the public art program because there was some doubt. There's funding problems in San Jose with the public art program because they don't have the 1% for private development that Palo Alto so wisely implemented. So we're working on that in San Jose. But they do have a new public art director, which I'm really happy about.
What's her background?
She's worked in public art. She's been probably in there 8 to 10 years in the public art program
Oh, in San Jose?
in San Jose. And when Barbara left, she named her to watch over the program until they named a director, and they named her last week as a director.
Did anybody else have any other announcements to add? So then we have for your calendar, which our next meeting is May 15th at 7 o'clock here. And then on that same day, the San Francisco Art Market will open, and that will be a weekend event, so from the 15th to the 18th. So that's our kind of West Coast version of being able to walk the aisles. Although we did get down to the contemporary. Yes, thank you to our friend Ben for helping us get into that, and that was really fun to see. And actually, it made me think about the RFQ for the open call because there were several people we spoke to who said, oh, we represent these artists. We'd love to be able to put them into the mix for you all. So anyway, that's it unless anybody else had anything for your calendar.
And the calendar question, isn't the youth art exhibit coming up? And what's, are we continuing on with the previous tradition of doing?
So it's different. I think it's every other year or something because I read about this. So they've already got it up. I think that you're talking about because we didn't jury it. It was different. They were talking about every other year.
No, and the commission never jury.
Not jury, but write comments or whatever. I did that last year.
As well as gave awards with money, and we've done that for.
Then it turned into one senior award.
Right.
They are working on installing, I know the Cultural Kaleidoscope, I think the youth art is also going up at the same time. And they have not been in contact with us seeking funding for it. So I'm not sure where they are on that. I've been out of the loop on that.
So it sounds like they may have decided that they don't want to continue doing that, or is that?
I'll look into that, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you to Trish and Larissa and Allie for great years of service. To Amanda as well. I'm just going to continue to hope that you're going to have a new appointment. Yes. Well, I don't know if we can just presuppose, but it seems like everyone that applies gets to to do it. Anyway, yes, she has a lot to do. So anyway, thanks everyone. The meeting is adjourned.